Let us begin this evening's liturgy.
Wait.
Welcome.
Because we got to talk about this. Because Kevin is a cradle setting. So he probably has never heard that song.
Yeah. No, it's a fifth grade for me.
This is okay. So, like, Kevin, you have not suffered like us. And I just want to say you've had easy mode Catholicism for quite some time now because you have not had to endure the Novus Ordo for any portion of your life. But that song will be ingrained in my head for the next 48 hours. Thanks to Stephen. Very grateful, Stephen.
That
brings back nasty memories from the 1980s and 1990s, Stephen. I don't know why.
It wasn't even a Catholic church. That's a crazy thing there. That was like a Methodist or something.
Exactly.
Is there much of a difference?
Yeah, Novus Ordo is a Catholic, right? Yeah, right.
Isn't it amazing though to replace something like Gregorian chant or Palestrina or Vittoria, like the true geniuses of music, and replace it with that? And there's a deep subject right there that you could get into. It's pretty intense. You look at the beauty of the churches or the lack thereof, and the music says something about it.
So I've been taking my 19-year-old son to work with me, and we have like a 2-hour commute each way. And we had like an hour and a half discussion today just about like Catholicism and the state of the church and like the state of the world. And he was like, when you look at the Novus Ordo, he's like, this is why 95% of my friends who are cradle Catholics left the faith, because it's just goofy and a clown show. There's nothing serious about it.
Yeah, but Kevin, but if you ask those people, they'll tell you that the guy who composed that song was a genius, and whoever played. If you ask the people who run that mass or whatever it was, that service, they'll tell you how brilliant and beautiful that was. They will.
So do you think they actually believe that, or is that just a coping mechanism? Because I mean, if you actually compare it, you actually listen to Palestrina and then listen to that, I don't think you can. Truthfully, maybe you can say, okay, my taste, I like this kind of cheesy, feel good, I guess, music. But I don't think you can't listen to them back to back and actually say that one is. I
don't think you recognize how deeply disordered the lives of the baby boomers were. Like, honestly, I think the baby boomers were just deeply disordered upbringings, and they find that stuff beautiful. It's strange.
Yeah, and they blame it a lot on the Catholic Church prior to Vatican II. I can tell you, I mean, I remember the lady, you may not believe this, I used to actually like teach RCIA in the local Novus Ordo church, and the lady who was running it, she was super boomer age, and she would always tell everybody in her class, it drove me nuts even back then, but she would always tell everybody in the class that, oh yeah, they used to do all that Catholic guilt stuff and make you feel guilty. But fortunately, after the council, we don't do that anymore. God loves us so much. That's why I think of God the Father as my daddy. He doesn't hate us and want to harm us. We're not afraid of him. He loves us so much. And fortunately, we don't do that stuff anymore. She used to tell that all the time. And it even drove me nuts back then.
Do you know what mentality? Do you know what that is? It's not just a mentality. That's a magic spell, right? So it's anytime you talk to somebody about the liturgy before the council, they say the same phrases. They all say the same thing. Like they'll say the Catholic guilt thing, but the liturgy, they'll say the father would mumble through it, and there would be old women praying their rosaries like that. It's like a spell, like a catchphrase that because they don't actually remember this. It's just something they're told because they grew up young around the time the changes came, and the older generation fed them these lines, and they just repeat them. Because I've heard it from my mother, I've heard it from my father, I've heard it from pretty much everyone who grew up in that time period, where they say the same things over and over. And the liturgy was actually not as great as everyone thinks. There were 30-minute low masses that father would mumble through, and old ladies praying the rosary. It's like, I love a 30-minute low mass.
Yeah. And by the way, if I don't know if you go, Anthony, when was the last time you've been to a Novus Ordo mass? Do you go ever?
2020. Well, I mean, maybe something like for something like that's probably not true. Like I've gone for things, like weddings and things like that, or if I like something like that. But 2020 was the last one because it was when my son made his confirmation, and I watched the Eucharist hit the floor like 3 times in a row. People were fiddling with their masks and stuff, and I was like, I'm never again. This is
where in New York are you, Anthony? I mean, New York City, Long Island.
Long Island, yeah.
I've been to New York like 3 times. I want to talk to you later about Mandami because I was in Bed-Stuy one time doing a week-long
I was there
like
today.
Service thing. Yeah. And it was St. John Baptist Church. I don't think it's even around anymore. It was like one of those old 1920s type churches where I had like a boarding school and then like a courtyard. And that was like the second time I was in New York. That was in Brooklyn. And I haven't been back. That was maybe 14 years ago, but I haven't been to Long Island.
There's some beautiful historic churches in New York City just because they were built before the council. I mean, there's definitely some beautiful churches in New York. Nothing that was built after the council, but before it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's get to the first topic here. I think obviously everyone's been discussing this new document from the Vatican, which does have Leo's imprimatur on it. He signed it. It's not just Casey Fernandez who did this. Everyone seems to be just wanting to blame him and to just say, well, it's not ex cathedra. Well, I mean,
this all sounds very familiar to my ears. Just throwing it out there before you get going.
Well, I mean, like that claim, I want to bring this up because I did this on a meme Monday the other day. I know at Square you did a video on this, so I want to kind of give you a bit to kind of to have a platform here. This meme I thought was pretty great. It's fine. These are legal immigrants, right? Like this is what our country's being put through. Okay, so like everyone who's like trying to tamp down this document, it's not ex cathedra. It's not infallible. Don't worry. It's not going to make it too big of an issue. I don't know. I think it's pretty bad when he's saying this is inappropriate. I don't have Taylor Marshall's reaction to this because he's just saying, well, there's no ban here. It is bad. I think it's bad. And that's why you did a video on this. So I want to let you kind of take a whack at this first.
Yeah. So my problem with it is, and I thought a lot about this and I thought about it some more since I put out that video, but here's my problem with it and just see what you guys think. The problem with the document is that it undermines and diminishes the devotion of the Blessed Virgin Mary to cater to the lowest common non-Catholic denominator mentality. And basically in doing so, it attacks the small t and big T tradition of the Catholic Church. And then it's like, well, what for? Why are we doing this? Mm-hmm. And my point was, well, it's to advance synodality because that's Leo's agenda. Everything these people do, you have to look through the prism, or to use the fancy churchy word, hermeneutic of synodality, because that's what these people are doing. That's why they're doing what they do. Everything. And they're not going to dogmatize anything, and they're not going to formally condemn anything because they don't believe in doing that. They don't believe in dogmas. They don't believe a pope in Rome has authority to condemn anything. They don't believe any of that. So they're never going to do it. All they're going to do is undermine it, chip it away, and in the process destroy people's faith. Because there's probably a lot of people out there who never even thought about this, and now Catholics are questioning whether Catholics worship Mary too much. I mean, this is insane.
The document itself,
it's insane. That's all.
Here's the direct quote, and this is exactly what Vatican II did. It says here, this text aims to deepen the proper foundations of Marian devotion by specifying Mary's role and her place with believers. Okay, with believers. That's not an exact phrase. That's generic, which obviously can include non-Catholics, so Protestants, in light of the mystery of Christ, etc. This entails a profound fidelity to Catholic identity, but also requiring a particular ecumenical effort. They're telling you right there, this is done with the intention of allowing it to be more ecumenical, and so they're going to downplay, obviously, Mary's redemptive part in the redemption. So.
I think the only thing worse, because I would have preferred they said nothing. I think the only thing worse than this document would have been if they actually tried to define Co-Redemptrix, because I don't actually trust them to define anything these days. The Archbishop Lefebvre interview that WM Review dropped 2 weeks ago was one of those things that kind of just like light bulbs went off in my head, where Lefebvre was like, these men are not concerned with infallibility. Like, this Pope wants nothing to do with infallibility, which is kind of what Catholic Esquire was just saying, right? It was just such an eye-opening thing. Like, so I don't take the recognize and resist position. I think resistance is futile. I actually am in favor for Traditionis Custodes at this point, which sounds crazy, and I think people will get very upset with me for it, but I'm just an accelerationist at this point. Like, I think that this thing that exists is it, like, there has to be a death for there to be a resurrection. Like, you need a Good Friday in order to have Easter Sunday, and whatever this thing is, because I even said about this document, I said, in order to not confuse the Protestants, the Vatican has decided to confuse Catholics. Like, that's actually
Good Friday was Vatican II, Anthony. Good Friday was Vatican II, and that there are, at least it's my opinion, and I think you have absolutely an unbelievable amount of evidence to say that. And look at the fruits that have come from it. I've done a show with Louis Brecchio on Catholic Family Podcast about the actual documents of Vatican II. And if you compare what was actually written there to what's happening now, it all makes sense. This is all fruits of the Second Vatican Council.
100% agree on that.
The absolute unseriousness of what's going on. We just got this document about Our Lady from a guy everyone calls Kissy Fernandez. How unserious is this? Look at the song that Stephen opened up with. This is an unserious church. And that would be my question as the Sedevacantists here. Can that be the Catholic Church? Can the Catholic Church be unserious? And I want to say just real quick, with my good friend Mario Dirksen of Novus Ordo Watch, I think he summed it up really well. He said, imagine looking at the devastated landscape of the Vatican II Church in 2025 and thinking, man, we really need to suppress the title Co-Redemptrix.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. It's like, well, I mean, what reason would you do this? Why? I mean, all of the issues that are going on, you think we need to belittle our Blessed Mother? And to me, it's just like, I sit here in the comfort and understanding that can't be the Catholic Church.
Vigano had a pretty good take, and you all know where I stand with His Excellency. I'm a big supporter. He's endorsed some of my books. I want to bring that up on the screen because his argument is that it is essentially what you're saying, Anthony, an acceleration to what the modernists in this conciliar church are gearing towards. And he says, Here we see how the heretics reveal their anti-Marian nature, not coincidentally linked to their anti-Catholic nature, because Mary Most Holy is Mother and Queen of the Church precisely by virtue of her co-passion and co-redemption. And Satan knows full well that his final defeat will be sealed by she who will crush with her virginal heel his rebellious head. And I think, honestly, and I want to keep going on this topic, but since the conclave, everything's got just like 50 times worse. There's all this division everywhere. That's not a bad thing. I mean, it's the fruit of not having someone in the Vatican confirming us in the faith. It's at the same time though, it's gotten noticeably far worse, if you will. And I'm not saying again it's a bad thing. It has to happen, but
I think Anthony, I kind of agree with you and Anthony on that. I mean, but there has to be some division here. We have to start. We need to start seeing that line, and taking sides. Quite frankly, and all the critics are going to say, "Oh, you're Protestant. You're sounding schismatic. You're sounding Protestant." I'm like, no. That's not Protestant. Protestants rejected the church and wanted to be outside the church. What we're fighting for is the church. We're saying, no, there is a church and you're not it. Now they may say we're the church and you're not it, and that's fine. That's where the fight is. But that's not Protestant or schismatic. We're defending the church. We're defending the Blessed Virgin Mary. We're defending the doctrines and the dogmas. And so to say, I'm not a part of that, that doesn't make me or you guys schismatic or Protestants. That's stupid. Because what we're saying is we're defending the church, and we're actually in the church, and we're the Catholics defending the Catholic tradition.
I'm
is
actually
that what you guys are saying. I mean, I don't know.
I'm actually a hardcore Novus Ordite, and I'm here to bring Kevin into full communion with Leo. And that was my
plan, Anthony. Come on.
I've been sent to undermine the Sede movement. And Lily is 100% right. You guys this is a coward move bringing me on here. The irony is, I think I hold the exact same position as Catholic Esquire. I think Stephen and Kevin are pretty on the same page, and Catholic Esquire and I hold the same position. So, I mean,
we just brought in Stephen as like the cute little zoo animal that everyone can pet and
we needed an amicable host.
I'm fascinated with Kevin because he's a cradle Sedevacantist. I mean, to me, that is fascinating, and I just want to ask Kevin so many questions about that. I have so many like questions, and I
I'll
don't
come
want
on your show
to.
anytime.
I don't want to derail
He's-
the conversation.
He's the first one I've met in the wild. You have no idea how interesting this is to me.
I know.
No, because he's the only normal one I've ever met, I think. And like, I think
But
Sedevacantists are out of
a
their
good point,
minds.
though, because you haven't actually talked to any, I would assume, or many at least. So
I've never.
That's the point I want to
I've
make. The
never talked to
crazies are on Twitter.
Sedevacantists. I don't think every Sedevacantists I've ever talked to used to be
Yeah.
another sort of Catholic or maybe even a Protestant convert, but I've never. But I don't want to derail the conversation. Maybe if we have time in the end, we can have an ask the Cradle Sedevacantist question session. But I don't want to derail the conversation.
I'm here for it.
Yeah,
Right.
I just wanted to bring this up real quick, Anthony.
Okay.
This was Esquire's point here. It says, sure is odd that many did not pick up on the irony to tear down Marian doctrines. Tuccio needed to admit Christ was the only way. So it's very unecumenical of the Vatican, insane.
I couldn't believe no one had pointed that out yet. I'm like, this document is Tuco Fernandez and Leo trying to tell everybody that Christ is the only way to the church, only way to heaven, and that's why we can't give devotion to Mary.
I mean,
and I'm like, a week ago, Leo's telling everybody every religion in the world is the way to heaven.
Yeah, they just had the
like,
notion.
oh yeah, well, we have to take Tuco seriously because we have to be obedient, and it's well, yes, he does talk about kissing people and all that, but it's still, I'm like, the guy has no credibility whatsoever. And then he starts talking like this and no one questions it. They're like, oh, it's a good document. Look at all this great Catholic scripture and it's so beautiful. And yeah, maybe he shouldn't go there to some places, but this is crazy. This is what my entire
can I ask you a question?
blog has been all day long on social media.
Can I ask you a question, Esquire?
Yeah.
Can the Catholic Church, the hierarchy of the Catholic Church, the papacy, can it persecute Catholics?
Yes.
Can the papacy persecute Catholics?
Can you be persecuted as a Catholic by the Catholic Church? Is that possible?
By the church or by the Pope?
Either, I guess, whichever one you want to answer.
I think a Pope could persecute people
in faith and morals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Persecute. I mean, it's kind of a hard question. It's kind of a
sure. I'm putting you on the spot. Yeah, but I think that's ultimately a question, right? Because I mean, I see a lot of people, especially in the R&R, who say that or act like they are being persecuted by the papacy, and I'd say then at least in my understanding of the papacy, that can't be possible. The Pope cannot err in faith and morals.
But Sedevacantists admit you can have bad popes, right?
Sinful popes, but not those who teach error in faith and morals. Because we have to trust the Pope. Because if not, who do we trust? We trust Taylor Marshall to give us the interpretation
sinful
from the Pope.
Right, but they can be sinful, right?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I think in that sense the Pope could persecute someone if it's sinful.
Yeah, I mean, he could tell you to do something that is sinful, and that would be in a way persecution. But in the way right now where he is teaching something that is contrary to previous Catholic teaching, contradictory to previous Catholic teaching.
I think there have been several examples of saints who were persecuted by the hierarchy, like several throughout history, where like the holiest of saints now were very badly persecuted by the hierarchy. So I don't know if that's the right question. I understand what you're saying about faith and morals. That's the bigger question, I think. Like, can a Pope teach something can the Pope err in faith and morals is a deeper question than can the Pope persecute.
Yeah, that's fair. That's how I mean it. That's a good point. I mean it by can you be persecuted because he is teaching falsely in faith and morals. So you're right. That's better.
Here's what I'm comfortable in saying, and then I'll let other people talk. I'm comfortable in saying the Pope has to be Catholic. If the Pope is not Catholic, he's not the Pope.
Here's the next question.
I'm comfortable in saying that.
Because there was an issue this past weekend with myself and another Twitter user, and he said, "Are you in communion with Leo?" And I said, "Well, Leo's a modernist. You can't be in communion with a modernist, can you?" So that's the whole issue here. If Leo's not Catholic objectively, he's a modernist, and he is objectively. He speaks like one, he walks like one, he talks like one. So can you be in communion with that? And I would say, ipso facto, probably not. You can't. That doesn't make sense to me. But
now we want Anthony to say something.
Got him.
Come on.
No, I don't know. I think
Abbate vacante.
I almost think I almost think no, they called Nostra Aetate Nostra Abbate the other day, and I was rolling. I'm like,
That's pretty funny.
that's actually Thuke came up with that one. He had me dying the other day. Nostra Abbate. And Lily, I love you. I gotta tell you, I hope you keep chiming in. You're actually lightening my mood tonight. Thank you.
I'll bring this up first because I've been meaning to get to this. From a cursory reading, paragraph 22 seems to be the most problematic passage, given the always inappropriate, which is in fact italicized. Granted, so to me again, that's like, so again, that makes me not understand why Taylor Marshall's out here saying there's no ban. He's trying to give it like a silver lining here when he's saying it's always inappropriate. So that I read that as the Vatican taking a pretty clear stand. Maybe not explicitly anathematizing its use, but saying, hey, like this is what we're going with going forward. And I don't know if they're going to enforce anything, but I mean, I don't know how you can walk away from this thinking it's just not as awful as it actually is.
Yeah, I think an interesting conversation, which Joshua Charles had mentioned to me, he was interested in doing it also, maybe having a conversation about the Passion of the Church with Mario and Kevin, because I know Mario, and I'd rather call him Mario, but I don't know if he'll be offended by that, but that's the proper way to say his name. But he's got like this list of like what the accurate Passion of the Church should look like versus a false Passion of the Church. So it might be an interesting discussion to go through point by point on that. But I look at this document as a continuation of the Passion. It's like Our Lady suffers with Christ in his Passion. So of course they're not adorning her with these august titles at this moment. I do think she will be given that title at the right time. I think that we're in the stage of Peter's denial, essentially. Like Peter's denial of Christ is where we are in the story right now, I think.
The crazy thing to me is that a lot of the Zoomers, the Grapers especially, if I want to open that can of worms, is that I mean, it was this document quotes Ratzinger and saying his disapproval of the use of this term as well. And Pinesat blocked me on Twitter a couple weeks ago when like I said, hey, like Ratzinger was part of the revolution at Vatican II. Like you got to understand, like these guys that you think are conservative are not that. And it's like, you know, he tweeted back at me with like a picture of a book by, it might have been Joseph Pierce, maybe, saying Benedict was like a big defender of the faith. I'm like, oh man,
come on, guys. Let's calm down a bit, because Prevost he chants the Our Father in Latin a lot, so he is clearly a traditionalist. Let's cool it a little bit here. This is not a modernist. He can pray in Latin. So come on.
There's a great. Keep talking. I want to find that meme somebody just put out about.
We need to have a big. And this is where I think. Stephen, I know you and I have talked a lot about this before, and I think this is where guys like Chris Jackson and those guys, we need to have a serious heart-to-heart, come to the Lord meeting, so to speak, meeting about Benedict, because these guys, the Trad Inc. guys, the Cath Inc. guys, all these guys want to go back to 2007. That's their goal. And like, no, I call it the return to Benedict option. Like, no, we don't want to return to Benedict option, because Benedict was a modernist.
It's nostalgia for him. It's a hard thing. Look, you grew up in the JP2 era, and you were a Novus Ordo Catholic. You taught RCIA, right? So we have this nostalgia for those guys. It's a strange thing where we like we were told the man was a living saint when talking about John Paul II. You know, it's like, so you have this. You have this nostalgia for him, and in reality, like, and what really opened my eyes to it was reading Lefebvre's interactions with him, and you're like, wow, man, Ratzinger really, like, he was pretty dubious with Lefebvre, especially, man. He like it's.
Yeah,
you just realize all of those guys were just revolutionaries, and then they came up with like a new Overton window. It was like, no, these are the conservatives now. It's like, no, Lefebvre was the conservative. These guys were all liberals, all of them.
I think JP2. I don't know what you guys think. I think JP2 was as bad, if not worse, than even Paul VI. And I never, I never used to think that until you actually start reading the stuff he wrote and the stuff he did and the stuff he talked about, putting aside all of the propaganda that we received from our Catholic schools, from EWTN, from everything growing up in the 80s and 90s about JP2. When you go back and actually look at the stuff he was doing, I'm like, oh man, this guy is, I mean, he's super modernist. I mean, as bad, if not worse, than Paul VI. That's my opinion. I mean,
what's the Sede take on that, Kevin? I mean, you guys think all of them are. I mean, you know,
I mean, absolutely. Well, they're true sons of Vatican II. Again, go read the documents. Go watch the show I did with Louis Brecchio, because again, it will really give you the idea of what it actually wanted to produce. It wanted, and I think Anthony used a great word. They were revolutionaries. That's the perfect word. They were. They wanted to create something new. They say that. And that's something that JP2 said. He said, this is a new, I forget the exact quote. Louis just used it the other day, that this is a new
springtime.
Something like that.
Springtime. He called it a new Pentecost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they admit they created something new. So as a state of
even that they call it the conciliar church all the time. Listen, this is why I say, like, the Sede position is very plausible. Like it's not like it very well could be true. I could be totally wrong on this. I just still I still think that the possibility of unfaithful bishops is it's not out of the realm of possibility. And especially when you read, like, it is a complicated question. That's all I'm saying.
The one thing let's see. The argument that for a long time I adhered to was, using the claim that Paul resisted Peter to his face. Right? You hear this all the time, but when you actually study that, it was not over a matter of, like, Peter wasn't binding the church on faith and morals. He was simply making what later Aquinas and I think Father Cornelius Lapide called, like, at most a venial sin of a bad example, where in his private capacity,
he was hanging out with Jews that were circumcised, saying that they should be circumcised.
Yeah, and so, when people will say, "Oh, we resist these guys to their face," like, they're not just doing privately bad or objectionable, offensive behavior. They're trying to impose on Catholics throughout the world, using the church's teaching organs, a non-Catholic modernist religion. And so that's the difference there. So I just wish people would stop saying recognize, resist, and using that example. I mean, so, like, it's not.
Well, it's also like the church, the church hadn't developed its theology at that point yet. Like, there's a lot of things going on there, and it's especially interesting when you think about the first heresy is Judaizers, right? These are Jews who think the Gentiles need to be circumcised, right? And I feel like that's coming full circle with Nostra Aetate, and the church is dabbling in Judaizing again. Like, that's what I see. That's what I see Nostra Aetate as. I see the church dabbling in Judaizing.
It's more than dabbling.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean,
it's the circumcision of the church. That's what I call Vatican II.
It is, to me, Nostra Aetate is the most problematic document from Vatican II. Its change in an approach to the church has given rise to things that Francis said about them, even this idea that Jews, Muslims, and Christians all worship the same God is so wicked and insidious. Because when you go back and you read John chapter 8 and you see what Jesus is saying to the Pharisees are arguing with Jesus, saying, Jesus is telling them, if you were sons of Abraham, you would rejoice at my coming, but you're not sons of Abraham. Your father is the devil. Like, he's literally saying you're not sons of Abraham. Like, Abraham actually understood the Trinity in the Old Testament. It's not explicit in the Old Testament, it's implicit. Like, he understood God was a Trinity. So Abraham rejoices at the coming of Christ because he knows that is God coming in the flesh. These men, their father is the devil. And now we have the hierarchy trying to convince us that Jews and Muslims worship the same God as us. It is from the depths of hell, that teaching.
Well, and if Muslims worship the same God, then explain the Crusades. And this is an interesting thing. I was just reading from Raymond Ibrahim, one of his books, and he was saying how there were two major battles, or maybe he was talking about one battle, I forget, in Spain during the Reconquista. and it was one of the major victories of the Spanish or of the Crusaders. And for 500 years, there was a great fest on this day. It was kind of a local feast, even that they celebrated. You went to mass, then you had a big party, and of course that was abrogated at Vatican II. Who would have thought? Just shocking. I mean, who would have thought? And this is, again, even Raymond Ibrahim writes this in his book. So, and I think he goes to the Eastern Orthodox, as far as I understand. But you can see again that they're trying to connect Catholicism with the Muslims. Exactly. These are people we fought because of their beliefs for 1,500 years. What are we talking about? It's so absolutely absurd that it's hard to even fathom that they actually say these things. Like, are we supposed to take you seriously? And I think that's, again, the point. It's so ridiculous, so absurd, that eventually you just have to say this is an unserious group of men, of people, without any guidance from the Holy Ghost. And I think, to me, that's absolutely clear. If that's the case, it can't be the Catholic Church. He cannot be the Pope.
I just think we are looking at something apocalyptic. Like, I don't see this as, like, I'm looking at the situation in the world. I'm looking at even the situation in all of what was formerly Christendom, with their open borders policy, allowing foreigners to come in that worship foreign gods, things like that. The rejection of Christ the King by the nations. Then on top of that, you have the church in this completely, like, castrated, like, inability to teach the truth. It's like all the post-conciliar popes have this. They're ashamed to preach the truth of Christ clearly. Like, everything they do has this, like, moderation to it. They're worried about offending anybody but Catholics. It's like that they will scandalize Catholics. They do not care about that, but they don't want to scandalize any non-Catholics. That's their only focus. That's what this document was, everything. So I'm looking at the entire situation, and then you're dealing with the fact that the Jews are back in Israel, and they were banished after the fall of the temple, of the destruction of the temple. Like, all of these things are just coinciding and coming together, and I don't see how we can separate that from being the end of the story. Like, it's the end of the story.
And I hope Kevin talks about that a little bit, because if there is supposed to be an apostasy at the end times, then if you hold the Sedevacantism position, in theory, I mean, there isn't really an apostasy. It's just a bunch of people that are outside the church, like a Protestant. I mean,
but there already has been apostasy. So we would say the apostasy was at Vatican II.
Well, there was apostasy. I mean, but there was apostasy at the Protestant revolt too. And those people are just outside the church. And I guess my problem is, and the biggest obstacle I have to accepting Sedevacantism is the fact that in 1958, I mean, your parents, your grandparents, mine, we all would have accepted that there is a church, that the Pope is Pope Pius XII. And that was the case in 1958, right before he died. Well, he dies, and then there's a whole college of cardinals. There's all these bishops. Presumably all these people had valid ordinations, valid consecrations as of 1958. And so then we have Vatican II that occurred under the watch of all of these people that the Sedevacantists and me and my grandparents and even the most liberals would have accepted as valid Pope and valid bishops and valid cardinals. So it's like there wasn't like this obvious,
and those people still hold the faith. They haven't apostatized.
There wasn't
right?
this obvious asteroid that came out of space that blew everything up, and so we can easily say these guys are outside the church and these guys aren't. We have
there's different theories
of individual people apostatizing, which certainly is the case. But it's like, how do you group one group of people out and excommunicate them and say they're outside the church and the other ones aren't? I mean,
I think it's objective versus subjective,
isn't it?
Right? Like, person by person, I don't know. I can't know. But I think the argument that I think could be true is the Lumen Gentium, or some document in Vatican II really proclaimed a new church. And I think I've heard Lumen Gentium being the one, which I think makes sense. And so you're saying at that moment, they created a new religion. Now, the people who,
That literally excommunicates the entire world. Like,
no, well,
like,
no, because I mean,
you
the
know?
people. I mean, what is a Catholic? And then this is something I get into with the Sedevacantists often, because Sedevacantists dogmatize the idea of Catholicism. If you're not Sedevacantist, you cannot be Catholic. And it's like, well, no one, it's not that simple.
That's
because,
what Lily's saying, right? Lily's saying
I agree.
Catholics
And a lot of
shouldn't talk with non-Catholics, and it's like,
Right.
wait a minute, but I do hold the Catholic faith.
Well, and that's the question. Yeah. So
like,
I mean, you have to be baptized, and you have to practice and try to perform the to the magisterium of the church. And so that's the question. I mean, so do I say you don't do that? Now, obviously, you and I disagree on a lot.
Yeah.
But can I just say Anthony isn't Catholic? That's a big statement, because I mean, it's like if you subjectively are trying to be Catholic and you're baptized, can I say that you're absolutely not? It's a very, very complicated situation.
Also, like, this is such a huge crisis, right? That it's like, it's not just so simple as like, well, I get this, and if you don't get this, you're an idiot. And it's like, no, wait, this is a very real, deep, like, question here. We're talking about, I don't know, it's just one of those things that I kind of fall in the same position as Esquire on this, where it's like, because they ask me all the time, can a non-Catholic be pope? Like, I think there have been dozens of non-Catholic popes, especially during the pornocracy, when they were selling the papacy just for power. Like, we've had popes toast the devil. So I don't, like, granted, I don't think they ever taught heresy or bound the faithful to heresy.
But
right?
that's
so, like,
the difference.
Right. So I don't
that's
think,
a big
I don't
difference.
think any of them bound anybody to like a heretical position. So it's a deep question. It's one that, like, I think about a lot. But that's why I never dismiss the Sedevacantist position. I just deal with individual sedes that I'm like, you guys are just so ridiculous. Like, you're just so annoying.
I think what you can, I mean, my whole take on it is, like, again, dealing with sort of the facts on the ground. And this is what I want to write about in my book on Vatican II. And the facts on the ground, which are inadmissible, because I don't like to get into the theology of things, because everyone's going to have their own views. I mean, Matt Gaspers is going to debate McCusker on Life Site, which was, I thought, a very helpful discussion, I think, like 2 years ago when they did that. And it gets into, where does jurisdiction come from? Where is a formal heretic? Is there a material heretic? Those arguments to me are just not super convicting at the moment. I don't have time to go into all of that, because it's not uninteresting, but my focus is elsewhere. So I guess, like, I start at the like ground level. Like, who were the ones who wrote the documents of Vatican II? Like, most of them, Yves Congar, Schillebeeckx, Rahner, etc., Ratzinger too. These guys were all, like, most of them essentially censured by the church pre-Vatican II, right? Like, so the Holy Ghost, if we believe that the church is guided by the church, by the Holy Spirit, the Congregation for the Holy Office under Ottaviani literally said, you are not to write, like, multiple times. I didn't excommunicate them, but they said your writings are a suspect, and they are modernist. So they get in there, they write the documents, and I've tried to been rereading them, as well as the original ones. People forget the original documents were there. Those were all thrown out. And the council was explicitly, it was a modernist coup, right? It changed the countenance of what Catholics in the pew believe about the faith, right? This is why they rewrote the Mass. This is why they rewrote the Code of Canon Law. And why this is actually completely different than the years after Trent, because actually I just saw a video of Cardinal Dolan. I just pushed back on him because he said, well, it takes decades for councils to be implemented. Well, the reason it took Trent a long time to be implemented was because there were reforms like building seminaries and building out curriculums. Like, there wasn't enough time to just do this in 10 years. It actually needed, like, a long time, because we didn't have social media, we didn't have cars. It was difficult to over time implement things. And so I sit here, I say, okay, well, those are the facts on the ground. And I say, look, and I look at this church that calls itself Catholic. Can we have moral recourse to, like, any of these clergy on a given topic? If you ask the bishop in your diocese over there in New York, or if you ask a bishop out in, I don't know, California or wherever, Germany, the same question, you're probably going to get 3 different answers, right? So this idea, like the church that we look at and to be Catholic, believe to be Catholic, one holy Catholic church, right? That's the marks of the church, the indefectibility of the church. I see error coming from it every day. There's no unity at all in this institution. I've written in my book, so if people want to complain that I don't say things about where I stand, read my book. read the introduction. I talk all about this.
People don't have the capacity to read anymore, Stephen.
Well,
this TikTok brain.
Yeah, I'm not talking to like other people on Twitter who think I haven't been honest lately. I mean, I've been out here for several years. It's just I haven't had a podcast. So my point is, like, when you go to this church to receive the bread of life, to receive the sacraments, etc., you're not getting back Catholic moral teaching. You're getting something different, and so it's a different faith, I guess, is my point, and it's a different religion. So does that mean it's a imposter religion? It seems so. Yeah, I mean, this is we know, again, there's an apostasy. We know there's going to be a fake church, basically. This has been prophesied by many as well. So it's like, all right, if it's a fake religion, if it's fake church, is it really that difficult to say it's a fake pope? I don't know. I think that's completely reasonable to say.
Yeah, I have no problem saying a particular individual is not a pope. I just don't. I mean, it's not, and that's the whole thing to me. It's like, to me, my issue is, and some guy in the chat was like, well, annoying doesn't mean you're wrong. I'm like, well, annoying doesn't mean you're wrong, but annoying tends to mean that you're not really helping the conversation at all, and you're just irritating. I have no problem saying a particular person is the Pope. I mean, I didn't think Benedict resigned. I don't think he had intention of resigning the papacy, because he doesn't view the papacy the same way Catholics in tradition view the papacy. That's what you have to understand, the modernist mindset. So to me, it's like, just like on one hand, you have Michael Matt going out there saying, oh, it's about the mass. It's about the mass. It's all about the mass. I'm like, and on the other hand, the Sedevacantism is saying, well, it's all about whether there's a pope or not, whether there's a pope or not. And I'm here saying those two issues are connected by the one issue of being the people don't hold the faith.
Yeah. I would say, like,
it's the dogmas. That's the problem. That's the common thread between all of this and Vatican II.
I would say, like, I don't see much of it, and I don't know, because I've never like seen like a Sede community, how they live it out, but I would imagine it's similar to someone who finds an SSPX chapel and they're just trying to be Catholic, right? And we're in this immense crisis right now, and you're just trying to be Catholic, even though we're in this insane crisis right now. It's like, we all agree that Vatican II was something revolutionary. That was, like, I think it was probably the beginning of the great apostasy, and it's taken 70 years for people, like the people in the pew, because like you said, at that first council, like, there were a lot of good Catholics who were just like, I'm supposed to obey the Pope, so I'm going to go along with this, even though they still believe the same exact faith they did a week before they started doing these things. But over 70 years of being immersed in that liturgy, like, the purpose of that liturgy it's the same reason Henry, after the English Reformation, they start changing the liturgy. It's because first you change the liturgy and then you can change the doctrine. And its purpose is to weaken the faith and weaken the doctrines of the church, because there are revolutionaries in positions of power that took over the Catholic Church. Like, that is actually what happened. I don't know what you do about if like with the certain groups of sedes who say that the ordinations are invalid, because I don't know how that seems like impossible to fix at that point. I don't know. Like, it's just such a big question.
Well, Kevin, you don't disagree that revolutionaries took over the church, do you? I mean, there was a church, the Catholic Church. There's Pope Pius XII. You have the bishops, the cardinals. He dies, and then at some point, something happened where people come in with apparent authority and start teaching something different. I mean, isn't
absolutely
right? I mean, there was some sort of takeover, right? I mean, there wasn't.
But right, but I mean, right. That's what I would say. Whenever it happened on the lead up to Vatican II, and then at Vatican II, it formed a new religion, and so that's the question. So as a Catholic, can you be in a church that you can't trust? What's the point? What's the point of being a Catholic if you look at what is the Catholic Church according to most right now, and you can't trust it? You look at what's coming out, and you're like, oh yeah, so Kissy Fernandez just said that Mary doesn't matter. What? I mean, how can you be a Catholic?
Okay, but look at this.
Say, okay, but I can't actually trust. I can't trust the Catholic Church. So I, as a Sedevacantis, can say, look, till 1958. And look, I think there were even things before 1958 that were approaching problematic. It wasn't perfect,
Right.
but I don't see anything that was clear apostasy or heresy. It was leading there perhaps, but it wasn't there. And so at Vatican II, it went boom. And from then on, people were like, can I trust this? And if you can't trust the Catholic Church, what's the point? Then you have Taylor Marshall's, I'm sorry to keep picking on him, but I mean, telling us, he goes and listens to what now Prevost says, and Taylor Marshall is telling you, hey, this is what you can believe, guys. All of my listeners, who's the Pope? Prevost or Taylor Marshall? It doesn't make any sense. Eventually, you have to say they can't be. If you can't trust it, what's the point? It has to be.
Well,
yeah, that's,
okay. So
even
if you can't,
one second.
Okay.
It seems to me, and this is why I put out a couple weeks ago, denounce and resist seems to be strategically the sort of best option, because the recognize and resist, well, it seems that most people, most Catholics and trads, like the normal way, and I've been asked by when I was on Kevin's show before, are you a Sedevacanist? What brand do you believe in? Whatever. I said, I'm a Catholic trying to find out what the Catholic response is. And the Catholic response to, in a normal time in the Church's history, seems to be that the Pope, whenever he issues a document, it's to be received with religious assent, submission, and that he is the proximate rule of the faith, right? And so, and as well as even like Pius XII in the 1950s, encyclicals are to be revered in that same manner. So if the case is now that we're being asked to literally resist and sift through and judge X, Y, or Z of every document coming out, we are not treating him as the proximate rule of the faith, which is what seems to be what we're supposed to do. So if that's the case, then it almost suggests, like ipso facto, like what Kevin is saying, that he can't. We're not acting like Catholics are supposed to be. And so, like my point is, like, we're not. And so that leads to an array of issues that could be a cascade effect, when I think you do see this in Peter Krasesky, got into some trouble over this by saying, like, St. Pius X's breviary reforms were modernist, and Timothy Flanders said Vatican I now needs to be challenged. Like, I just see that going in that direction, and it's sort of like, okay, if we're just going to sift everything, which we do have to have, obviously we have to make a judgment on what is right and wrong here, because we have reason, but I don't know if it's Catholic, because it was actually the Gallicans who, under the late 1800s, were resisting everything the popes were doing and just saying, we're going to do this instead. But Anthony, I just wanted to say that, but go ahead. You had a
well, I would say this, like, whether you personally believe Leo is a valid pope or not, is one question, but the world sees Leo as the valid pope. And it's like, you're like, regardless of what our personal opinion might be, what the Bishop of Rome does matters very much. So it's not like I could just go, well, it's not a valid church, it doesn't matter. No, it very much matters. It very much matters what that man does and what this church does, whether the Sede position is right or wrong, which is why all of us are still looking to Rome when a document comes out, regardless of your personal opinion on it, because the world still sees the Catholic Church as the entity that needs to be taken out of the picture in order for them to fulfill their actual motivations and revolutions. And whether, as weakened as the church is right now, it is still the only stop barrier and moral voice in the world. Like, it's
is it?
I know it's weakened.
Real quick,
are you
being serious? Are you saying that the Novus Ordo Church is a moral barrier? Yeah, come on. That's not serious.
The church is supposed to be the moral barrier.
Listen to me. Right. Without even what it is now, you're looking at utter chaos throughout the world. Like, there's still something about it being a restrainer of some kind, of it being some kind of a catacomb. Like, I think that, like, the symbolism behind Paul VI laying down the papal tiara and essentially handing over the church's authority to the UN at that point, like, all of those things have led to the moral chaos we are in today. But there's still something about that, like if they really weren't the church, like, they would have ordained women. They would have freaking. I know you say that, but we've been saying that. Like, there's something still stopping it from doing that. Like, there's something still stopping.
But Anthony, here's my question for you then. What is the line? Like, what do they have to do in Rome for you to say, okay, enough? I mean, what else do they have to do? Bergoglio says hell doesn't exist. He says sin is subjective. I mean, what does Rome have to do for you to say, okay, now that's too much?
I'm not sure I haven't said that already, though. That's the point. Like, I'm not sure I haven't already gotten to that point. What I'm doing in my life is raising my children Catholic,
Sure.
teaching them the Catholic faith, and still living a sacramental life. And just basically like waiting for God's intervention. I think that's what we're all doing.
Here's a personal question that you don't have to answer, but I'm just curious. If you're teaching your children the faith, what catechism are you using?
Trent, the Baltimore Catechism.
Okay, so you're not using, and I appreciate that. So, and this is so, Anthony, I want you
the
to know,
Baltimore
and you know
Catechism. Mainly.
This is why I talk to you, and even though people call me like I'm a heretic for talking to Anthony Abbate, because you and I don't have exactly the same opinions. I do think you are a guy who wants the truth and wants to be Catholic. So I understand all of that. I think there are a lot of Sedes who don't, and they're a bunch of trolls. But I guess the question is again, okay, if you're doing that, so you're teaching them Trent, why? Why, Anthony? Because you don't trust the catechism.
No, but I'll say that.
But I'll say that. The Catholic Church.
Yeah, no, I'll say. Yeah, no, I know, but Kevin, I don't think we're as far off as
you guys are saying. You guys are saying the same thing.
Yeah, I don't think we're as far off as you think, man.
You guys aren't disagreeing at all here. You guys aren't disagreeing at all. The traditional Catholic Church, what we know to be the real Catholic Church, is what the world needs and what the evil people in the world are afraid of. That's what they want to destroy. The problem is that a lot of the bad guys have infiltrated what we always used to know to be the traditional Catholic Church to destroy it with that intent. So you have a bunch of people who claim authority that are trying to undermine that because they know that the real Catholic Church, the same one Anthony believes in, the same one Kevin believes in, is what is the last obstacle to complete new world order, worldwide destruction agenda, Antichrist stuff. Yeah. So you guys are really saying the same thing.
Let me jump in there, Anthony. I think Vigano again put out a statement recently. He was saying the dissolution of the papacy, right? The ecumenical nature that what's his name, Ratzinger did to it, right? To expand it, to make it collegial, right? That was, I think, a very significant moment, and that was like the last attack on the actual, semblance of the original church, if you will, right? And that's a big moment to say, like, the catechon essentially is gone. If the papacy is this restrainer, then the resignation, the expanding it into an emeritus institution.
Did you ever read what was that called? Man, they go through Tychonius's theology because Benedict talks about Tychonius's theology. Tychonius is he's at the same time as Augustine, but he's what was that heresy back then? A Donatist. But Augustine draws on his theology a lot. He talks about the body of Christ and the body of a body of the devil existing under the same sacramental system, right? Now we see this in reality. You see when Joe Biden claims to be Catholic, but he does everything opposed to Catholicism, right? But he still has the name Catholic. Like, you have the body of Christ and the body of the devil within the same system, and in the end times, like, the body of the devil will overcome a majority of it, and there will be a remnant preserved, which is why Michael Matt chose the remnant, because there is remnant theology throughout Scripture where God preserves a remnant and he rebuilds through that remnant. But
yeah, I think there's a couple of things to say to that. I know what Kevin would probably say as well. The church is pristine. It's perfect. It's indefectible. How can you have another institution occupying its offices, right? And again, this gets into different set of theories. This gets into different, like, views of what Lefebvre himself said about, is there, and Tissier himself, like one of the SSPX bishops, said, like, the conciliar church and the Catholic Church are overlapping and they share the same head. There's all different theology things. I think, again, like, for me, there is a weird osmosis process happening. And what I mean is, like, to people who call themselves Catholics, but really aren't. That's the way I sort of look at, like, people like, let me clarify this. When I see someone like Strickland and, like, even Cardinal Burke, they say good things many times. I mean, Strickland just wrote something about Vatican II on his Substack. It was quite off from what I view of the council, but he, as like someone in this conciliar church, is closer to, let's just say, the truth than someone like James Martin, obviously.
Yeah, he's just hanging on to the hermeneutic of continuity.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, so there are persons in here who are grasping and getting close, if you will, and they still, walk around in the vestments. But again, it's like, where do you draw that line? I don't know. I mean,
well, he also approved or was on the side of Amoris Laetitia. So
who was that? It was a Strickland.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, there's obviously a lot of things that are not good about some of these guys, but like, that's the difficulty. I don't tend to draw lines about this. Or at least maybe I haven't read the documents that, the other studies who would say, here's what you do. But again, I don't know, Kevin, you can respond to that more, because I think it touches on like the different study theories, like where is and who is part of the church. But I don't know. I just personally try to have charity towards everybody, because for me, they asked me these questions 10 years or 13 years ago. I'm still like in the Novus Ordo church, like barely coming.
Yeah, man, that's exactly what I like. Seriously, think about where we all were 10 years ago. Okay, well, Kevin,
20 years ago.
Kevin was in the exact same state.
Yeah,
although maybe he was in Germany. I don't know.
But Kevin, this is now my second conversation with you, and I love hanging and talking with you. So I don't care what the people in the comments say. Like, I enjoy talking with you.
Sorry about the comments, everybody. I would put them up on the screen. It's just it's going too fast. Sorry.
I think that even though I'm like not all the way there, like dude, like, so somebody asked, like, can the remnant be preserved? Can a sede be part of the remnant? Of course. Like, I don't think your especially when you get into times where there's anti-popes and stuff, and there's two popes in the church, like I don't think your position on is this pope valid or not affects your salvation. I don't. I think that we're both kind of living in a very similar situation where we're like, I don't really trust what the hell's going on over here. What we're talking about is, are these ordinations valid? To me, what makes it so atrocious what these men are doing is that they are actually priests of the Most High God.
Well, just real quickly, sorry, Esquire, but real quickly, because I mean, I think again, we always get into the weeds of like the subjective and the objective. Subjectively, God only judges what someone is. Are they going to be saved or not? So I mean, do you live a devout life? Are you trying to save your soul? Are you avoiding sin? These are things that I'm not going to attempt to judge, but then I would say, okay, objectively, can it be the Catholic Church? And so obviously my opinion of that is no, it can't. Thus, I have to be in the position of Sedevacante. But then I can also say, and that's again the issue that I have oftentimes with Sedevacantists. So you go around just saying like, well, Anthony's going to hell and Esquire's going to hell, and Kokx, well, he's some sort of an infiltrator, so he's definitely going to hell. So I was like, and that's ridiculous. That's absolutely absurd. And I think it's just, why on earth? What is the harm of having conversations with men that I think are of goodwill? So,
and if we don't discuss these things, like, how do you get to the truth of them? Like, I don't get that. It's such a crazy thing to think. Agreed. Because, like, I'm genuinely not sure what the correct answer is, and it's like I'm coming to conversations with Sedevacantists, and I'm coming in goodwill. I'm not saying you're an idiot, you're wrong, or anything. I'm actually like trying to, like, let's sparse out this theory and let's try to figure out what the hell's going on here. It's just, I don't, I'm telling like the online settings, because and not all of them, because I love Thuk, like, he's a maniac, but I genuinely like this kid. But it's just like, you guys got to chill a little bit and let these conversations happen, because sometimes they move people. Sometimes it's not about what we're saying. It's about people listening in and going, oh man, I never heard that before. Like, you're having a debate about something, and it's not always about changing the person's mind that you're debating. It's about the people listening in on the conversation and them hearing the arguments. And it's like, maybe that moves someone towards one or the other positions.
Yeah, I think there's this area where there's a real gray area, and you have maybe the Sedevacantists on one side, and maybe some people who are a little unwilling to say there hasn't been a pope since 1958 on the other side. But there's this gray area where everyone kind of agrees that, okay, well, we have to follow what the church teaches. We understand tradition. We're not going to follow someone who teaches something contrary to the faith. The Sadists agree with that, and maybe those on the other side of that line also say the same thing. So there's this gray area that people are dealing with. And I think the Lord's going to be pretty merciful with everybody in there, because this is a really hard question, and we don't have a lot of precedent for it. So I know everybody looks for it, but at the end of the day, it's like, this is a gray area. I have no problem talking to the Sedevacantists. I think their ideas actually do solve the problem of the crisis in the church. I'm just not sure that it's just as easy as just saying, well, this large group of people are all outside the church and not Catholic. I think it's just more complicated than that is all.
Well,
if they could prove that for everybody, that's fine. But I just that's where I'm landing. But I think we're all in this little gray area where I think we're real close to the truth. We're real close to the target, and it's just trying to narrow down at that point. That's where I kind of.
Well, and what good can you possibly accomplish by going after Stephen Kokx? I mean, it's like what are you guys trying to do? I don't know if any of those trolls are listening to this show, but it's like even if Stephen is, let's say he's a CIA agent who's just trying to make us all fight each other, whatever it is, what good is it?
Somebody think him up as they already. You're just gonna make it.
We're just
which is pretty much CIA of the Catholic Church, right? So what is it going to accomplish? Most likely 99% that's not true. But even if the 1% is true, what are you going to accomplish being uncharitable on Twitter about it? It's just like, what's the goal? What are you trying to achieve? And that's what's really sad about it, to see these guys go out there and just attacking people. It's like, well, in the end, it makes someone like Anthony go like, boy, Sadie's a bunch of jerks. They're just a bunch of guys who just go around and trolling. He's like,
well, Gregory said, Anthony, many don't want the conversations, they just block, but I don't. Like, I've never blocked. The only one of you guys I blocked is Phil, but like, I still follow all you guys. I still interact with all you guys. Like, I don't block people. Like, I don't know. And from what it seems like, I seem to be the only guy in my realm willing to even have these conversations. Like, most of the other guys are like, I'm not going to talk to a Sede. I don't feel that way. I'll talk with anybody, especially somebody that's not going to come in and try to make me look stupid for not knowing something, or like, dude, I'm a high school dropout. I do the best I can. I don't know what you guys want from me.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points worth raising too, from what I'm seeing, is that, I mean, again, it goes to, what is it? Paul IV, who said in that document, Kokx or whatever, a heretic cannot be elected to the papacy, right? And if any of these post-conciliar guys are heretics, which I believe they objectively are, right? They're modernists. Can they even be elected in the first place? Now, again, that's sort of a daunting extrapolation, because you'll say, well, then the entire hierarchy is modernist and it's an imposter. Well, again, I think because I saw last time, Anthony, when you guys did the show with Kevin and Mario, it was the response was it's a sort of apocalyptic theory. And I've been thinking about that, and my thought is, well, yeah, maybe this is that time. But secondly, and more like concretely, like if a doctor tells you have cancer, if he's still a doctor, if he can't cure you, yeah, he's still a doctor, because all he's doing is telling you the truth. He might not be able to fix you, or he might not be able to get you out of the situation, but he's telling you the truth. And so I think that's very applicable to the Sede theory, because people will often bash it and say, well, how do you get out of this? How do you restore it?
Yeah.
And again, this is something that Bellarmine and others did not, again, ever foresee, that the entire hierarchy would be duped into this error. And to that point, this is why I don't buy the argument of universal acceptance of these popes, because nobody in the conciliar traditional and conservative movement accepts them as pope in practice, right? You say you do, but and you might pray for him, but again, the Catholic rule of treating the pope is to have reverence and to treat him as if he is the proximate norm of the faith. And what do we actually get in that? In the meantime, everybody's resisting and saying how he's wrong every single day. So, like, he's being accepted or recognized as a pope, but of the conciliar, ecumenical, synodal religion and church. So the Catholics, I imagine all of us here, right? We have resisted him since he came out of the conclave. At least I was publicly very outspoken about that. I know Esquire was, and I didn't catch up with everybody else. But the entire resistance movement, if you will, since the council, starting with Lefebvre and others in the 1950s, Father Fenton and Gomer de Pau and Bishop Delorier, they all recognized very quickly this was somebody who was an offense to the faith, this new religion, and so I I appreciate the conversation here, and I do think like when you tease all this out, at the end of the day, heresy cannot flow from the seat of Peter. Like Christ did not allow that. That's what he gave us the papacy for. Even in his non-infallible statements, yes, he can make imprudent or practical judgment errors on practical things regarding facts or history, but when it comes to faith and morals, I have not found a pope in the church's history that has imposed on the faith error on those topics. And so when these guys are doing that, something is off. And I think it's unfortunate. This is my last point here. When I hear people, and Peter Kwasniewski, again, who I know and I have pleasant conversations with, I respect all these guys and what they do on the various subjects.
You went to war with all of them. Now they don't want to talk to you, Stephen.
Well, I mean, I'm going to be accountable to God. I'm going to be accountable to God for what I have to say and do. And and my point is, Peter has said he won't debate Sedevacantists. Why not?
I don't think I would.
Why
I don't think
not?
I don't think I would do a formal debate, but I'll have these conversations. Guys, I have to fly. If you guys want to close it out and hang for a little longer, but I do have to go do something. I'm open to another one of these, though. I have a great time every time I hang with you guys. So
yeah. Thanks, Anthony, for coming. Well, I'll stay on if you guys are up for it.
I can stay on a few more minutes. Okay. I just wanted to make.
All right, so I'll just dip out. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Anthony.
Take care, Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony. See ya.
So my last point on that is like I wish Peter would debate or tackle the Sedevacantist issue. Okay, if you don't want to debate Sedevacantists, discuss the issue itself. So I do think it is important, like Anthony said, like the world sees and treats these guys as the Pope, and so do many Catholics. So like if we take that away or get the right solution to that, and let's say people start buying into it, which I don't think, I don't know, God's going to reveal that to however many souls he wants to in this time. It seems he wants just a small amount because just more people are not latching onto it. So I think then in that case, well, you just do what you can, and God wants the small situation for the church and divided church. And that's how we know it's obviously the case, is because the fruits are there. There's no unity anywhere. So you can sort of back end your way into this and say, well, he's not confirming us. How is this? Like, what's in charge? But anyway, that's my little spiel there.
And I can just finish up just sort of on my final thoughts. And I don't know if this
before you go,
show is supposed to be about Sedevacantism. It's just like
real quick, Esquire, I want to get this in because
that's fine. Yeah,
I think you asked this earlier, or somebody asked this earlier. I think you addressed this. I think Kevin actually asked this. Quick question: What would the Vatican II religion have to do for you to say this cannot be the church, etc.? I think you answered it before, but I just want to throw that out there and say thanks for the show.
Well, my answer to that is that and this is actually one of my criticisms of the Sedevacantist part, and this is what I was going to wrap up with anyway. So I think maybe it'll answer the question. But to briefly answer that question, that when the Sedevacantists present that question to me, what I always say is that you're begging the question, because you're saying what does you have to do to say it's not something's not the church, or not it is the church? What do they have to do? What did they have to do to say it's not the church? And I'm like, well, you're begging the question, because the whole question is who and what is in the church. So who is they? What and then what is required to be in the church and what is not? I say that you have to be baptized and you have to believe in all the doctrines and dogmas of the church to be in the church. If you're not baptized and if you don't believe in the faith, you're outside the church. That's the answer. The problem I have is like with the Sedevacantist part, and then I'm going to say where I think the Sedevacantists, I'm going to defend them against the R&R people. I think the problem with the Sedevacantist position is that they have a real hard time with explaining the apostolicity mark of the church, and that's what I was getting at. Bringing up the 1958 stuff, I'm like, okay, in 1958, everyone agreed there was the church and there was a real pope and there were valid bishops and cardinals. And then at some point, and this is the point, this is the whole thing, is like, where is that dividing line where this new church, and again, church, we're lumping a whole bunch of people in together, arise out, that we can safely say we can excommunicate them outside of the Catholic Church? That line isn't clear to me exactly. At some point, some Sedevacantists must have said, hey, John the 23rd is not the Pope. At some point, or maybe some of them said Paul VI isn't the Pope. At some point, they reached that conclusion, and that's fine. And maybe that's accurate. But what I'm saying is it's just not that easy to say. to defend the Sedevacantists against the RNRs, I think the argument where they say, well, how is this going to resolve? How is this, what happens to the church? What, you know, if there is no Pope and there is no jurisdiction, and how does this resolve? That argument, that question doesn't refute Sedevacantism. The fact that the Sedevacantists say, well, we're not sure, this is something in God's hands, that's a perfectly legitimate thing to say, because that is that's a totally separate issue than whether there is a valid Pope or not since 1958. They're trying to, it just is a separate issue. It's an important question, and I'm curious to know the answer to that as well. But to say I don't know the answer to that does not mean that the Sedevacantist position is refuted. So it drives me nuts when the RNRs try to use that as a way to refute Sedevacantism. It's a legitimate question to ask, but to refute it, I'm not going there with that. So I guess that's where I can leave it off on that question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would simply say, I think Stephen mentioned it earlier, that there are questions that we don't have the answer to. This is a totally unprecedented situation in history, and I don't even want to try. There are many different opinions, but in the end, for me, the Sedevacantist position doesn't contradict previous teachings of the Catholic Church. If you look at Vatican II, you look at previous documents, it directly contradicts previous teachings of the Catholic Church. It can't happen. It can't. Like, that's not possible, because if it is, again, then what's the point? If you can say now, you know, say that they can change religious indifferentism, which was clearly condemned by several popes, what's the point? They can change anything. Then the Pope is not pure. The Pope is not holy. Then it can just always be something different. The next Pope is going to come and he's going to proclaim something else, you know. And I mean, and then someone's going to say that gay marriage is actually fine because marriage hasn't been defined, you know. And so eventually, I am totally comfortable in the situation where I don't have all the answers. I don't. Nobody does of the Sedevacantist group. They have opinions. Some have different ones than others. But I really feel secure in saying I am comfortable in being a traditional Catholic, and that is based on Catholicism up until 1958. And like, to me, that is really freeing, because, and I was born into this, but I've also gone through my own, you know, moments where I've really truly gone into it, really considered it. Is it true? Is it what I actually believe, or did my parents just, you know, indoctrinate me? You know, they didn't, obviously. And so I actually believe it, and I feel really, really secure in it, because I truly believe that I hold the Catholic teachings and the dogma, the doctrines, up until the point where things went crazy. And we all agree things went crazy at Vatican II. So if that's the question, I don't think it's that big of a, it's not a big leap to say, okay, well, everything up till that point is Catholic and everything after isn't. And so I may say Sedevacantist. And I think that again, it's to me a safe position. Now, I understand people from the other side that, you know, they haven't come to that yet, because I get it. It is. I mean, it's a hard position to say that the Pope, there hasn't been a Pope since 1958. Like, really? Like, are you serious? Like, okay, so what are your solutions? And you have good questions. What are the solutions? Where is the apostolicity? And I don't have all the answers, but I do have the clarity. And again, knowing that I hold to the truths the church taught for almost 2,000 years. And I don't think that that's the same case in the Novus Ordo.
Well, I'll end it in a couple of minutes here. I know it's getting over an hour. We wanted to stick to an hour. And honestly, I had a different show planned, but this is fantastic. And I really think this is what we need to do more of, and I appreciate it. And I encourage our viewers, again, to really study the different schools of Sedevacantism, because, you know, I hear this term lately. I had on Ann Barnhart, and which was an explosive interview for sure, as well as Dr. Mazza. And I know they adhere to the Benedictist position, as do others who are trying to think through this. And, you know, so that's one theory. And then, you know, I press them on the idea, well, if Bergoglio and Prevost are heretics, well, they all subscribe to the same, you know, modernist principles of the council. So I mean, what is holding you back on saying all of them are
because the liturgy, Pope? I think, right? I think like Benedict was so Pope because he did a liturgy that we liked better.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of superficial things that made people think, yeah, it was that. But again, that's just to my point, is like, and then you're going to get into the thesis, the Sanborn Cassisiacum thesis, which will hold to what you were talking about, Esquire, about the apostolicity being maintained, but they're just like, they have as much authority as like the garbage man, right? So they're occupying the offices to an extent, but then they can't wield the power of it because, you know, they're not Catholic. It's like electing like a Protestant, right? But then again, you have what I guess today is now known as the 58 Sedevacantist view, where it's more of totalist position because that's where the error sort of began, etc. And I think, again, that's like, those are like down the road conversations that people really don't understand about this topic because, you know, Louis Verrecchio thankfully defended me on Twitter this week against a lot of accusations. And I read an article on his website not long ago, and he was taking the position opposite of Father Cicada. I think Father Cicada's point was that he doesn't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, that the new consecration rite of bishops is valid. And Louis actually was saying he himself believes, you know, they are. And, you know, so I think there's just a lot of nuance to these positions that, you know, people will dismiss. Oh, you're Sedevacantist, you're a complete heretic, you're outside the church. When in fact, hey, like, go read the WM review, go watch Kevin's podcast, you know, go on AK Catholic and watch the Bishop Sanborn shows and buy Father Cicada's writings. Like, there is like an enormous amount of documentation on this topic. And it's a central question to our faith. And that's the thing I think we have to realize, again, like the papacy is what makes the Catholic religion the true faith. It has been given that other religions don't even have anything really. Well, they have imposters, right? King Charles, etc. But the thing that makes the church unique is the papacy. And so it is a paramount issue. And I respect all those clergy trying to tackle it because, again, none of them in their church's history, Bellarmine, etc., saw what we're going through. And again, it's sort of like and I know the analogy is often misused, but you're in a house and the dad's not home. So the siblings are going to team up. They're going to bully each other. They're going to try to, you know, pick this, pick that side. And it's literally just, we're all left up to our own devices to try to try to cling to those clergy who have the faith and to save our souls. But I'll give you guys a last word. Whoever wants to take the lead first, it's fine. But I know we're quite long, so if you don't have much to say, that's completely fine. But thank you both for being here. It's been a great privilege to speak with you all, and everyone for viewing tonight. It's not what I planned, but it went wonderfully, I think, and we'll do another one.
No, I'll start first. I'll just say real quickly, thanks for having us, Stephen. And these are exactly the kinds of conversations I think we need to be having. And quite frankly, they're not being had very many other places especially where people aren't speaking to the choir, right? Like where they block people, ban people, and then only invite people on that agree with them on absolutely everything. And then this is exactly the type of conversations that unfortunately we have to have, because I think everybody agrees that there's a lack of leadership, a lack of pastoral fatherhood on a universal basis that we can all cling to and that we all have a right to as Catholics. And unfortunately that's missing, whether there is no pope or not, or whether there's a really bad pope that's a heretic. Either way, we're sort of still in the same position with having to try to work some of these things out ourselves. And so I think this is part of the way to do it. So thanks for having me. Thanks, Kevin. Nice meeting you and talking to you. And I had no idea you were in Germany, and I'm sorry you were up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Now,
worth it.
All right.
No, I appreciate it. It was nice meeting you as well. And I really, as you guys said, I really appreciate these discussions. Worth staying up until 3 a.m. because again, I think it is part of it that I think is important from the Sedevacantist angle is, again, to normalize the idea that, hey, these aren't a bunch of weirdos. You know, we're just not. I mean, some are, sure, you know, but so are some Novus Ordites. I mean, look at what's his name, Nick Fuentes. He's does everyone agree with everything he says? Come on. So it's like, we got to be a little careful to say all Sedes are crazy. It's not the truth. You know, I mean, we all have our problems. We all make our mistakes, etc. But I think that it's good to get these ideas out and hash out these ideas. I mean, actually have dialogue, right? As the Novus Church would say, we need to have. But I think it actually is an important thing. And I think especially to have polite discussions where it's like, hey, let's talk about the issues, not just sling mud. And I appreciate Stephen for doing this. You guys are welcome to come on the Catholic Family Podcast as well. I'd love to do it there as well. Because again, I think this is what it's about. We don't all agree on everything, certainly, but again, I think people need to take a step back and just be like, okay, you know, what are the intentions? What are people trying? You know, is Catholic Esquire, is he towing the line so that he can get a paycheck? I don't think so. That certainly doesn't seem the case to me. Those are the guys who I kind of like. Okay, that this is problematic.
No paycheck, yeah, no.
Someone like Stephen Kokx and people are attacking him. It's like, well, look what just happened to the guy. I mean, come on, because he's standing up for truth. I mean, so it's just ridiculous. I think everyone needs to take a step back and really think things through. And really, my last note would be, let's all remember what Christ actually taught. I think we all get so caught up in doctrine and dogma and ex cathedra and all these different things that we actually forget about the charity and the peace and these things that we're actually supposed to live our lives with. And that includes on the internet. That's why I left Twitter. Stephen, by the way, I'm sorry I didn't defend you on Twitter because I got off on November 1st.
You're better where you're at. That's a good
I would have been there, but I got off because it makes me uncharitable. Really, truly, I become a little jerk on Twitter. So I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And I think everyone's just got to remember that. That's the whole point. We should be actually trying to be Christ-like. What does that mean? What is Christ-like? Being Catholic should be, we are the light of the world, not we're these little punks on Twitter. So please think that through. What are you being viewed as? If you're promoting yourself as a Sedevacantism Catholic and acting like a troll, what do you think that implies? What are people getting from that? So just keep that in mind. Everything you say, especially publicly, matters. Everything that you do is being viewed by others, and it's not just impacting you, it's impacting your position in the Catholic Church. So be Christ-like. That would be my last point.
Amen.
There you go. Good, great. Well, it's been a wonderful hour and a half here, and thank you both for being here. And we will do potentially more of these, and we'll get more people on, and if they want to come on and talk and share views respectfully. And we appreciate all the comments. Again, sorry, everybody out there. I didn't see those tonight. It was hard to kind of keep track of everything, but we appreciate you being here, and especially for Kevin, again, late night. Have a fun day at work tomorrow. I hope it was worth it. We know it's worth it for Christ, for church. So,
I got some strong coffee.
There you go. Yeah, amen. All right. Well, and thank you for everybody for being here. Thank you to Kevin, as well as Catholic Esquire, as well as Anthony for being here earlier. I'm sure he'll watch a later part of this show at some point in the future. So thanks again, everybody. Talk soon. God bless.